Hey guys, how are we doing? Back with another video from Seth the Programmer, and we got Could Naruto beat all the Espada? Now, going into this, I'm just going to say that I don't think Naruto could. But I could be proven wrong, like I usually am, with most of these videos. But I just feel like the whole Bleach universe is stronger than the whole Naruto universe. So I just feel like Ichigo against the Akatsuki, Ichigo won, didn't he? If I'm wrong, Jesus Christ, let me know down below. But I feel like if you flip it, it still doesn't quite work that way. I feel like Naruto still can't beat the Espada, like Ukiura, Grimmjow, the dude that was Zero. Let's just see what Seth has to say, shall we?
Hello everyone, it's your host Seth the Programmer. I'm back from my 2-month
Has it been that long?
Sorry about that, but why not celebrate my
second
return with
video.
a good old collab with the old weeaboo Clyde on some Espada versus Naruto, which is the follow-up to Ichigo versus the Akatsuki. I thought this would be interesting. A lot of people wanted to see it. And obviously, we've been kind of taking a long time on Ichigo versus Naruto, so these kinds of cross-verse videos are a good substitute in the meantime. So.
Oh man, I can't wait to see
anyway,
that though.
While we make you wait for Naruto versus Ichigo, which is, it's going on 2 years, we do apologize. We thought we'd make this video as a follow-up because the last one we did was Ichigo he just whipped his down. He just, he slapped the Akatsuki, right? But anyway, we're basically going to do sort of the same thing here, but we're going to run through how would Naruto go against the Espada, just reversing the roles really of the verses. And I think you guys would like this anyway. A lot of people did request it, so we're going to be making the video here, and I'm happy to be on. Thank you for having me on the channel again.
So the premise of the video, we'll just be going over just general Naruto and Bleach scaling. The first one will obviously just be how does KCM2 Naruto in the war stack up, like the one that fought Obito alongside Sasuke, or how does Six Paths Naruto stack up. We can even go over like adult Naruto later on.
Ooh, okay, that's
obviously
interesting.
We'll be doing the similar thing where I go over speed, he goes over speed, then we'll go over destructive capacity. He goes over destructive capacity for Bleach, and I do Naruto. And then we'll kind of do our own little conclusion at the end.
So nerdy.
Without further ado, I guess I'll start. When scaling Naruto characters, I try to be as all-encompassing as possible with the different interpretations you can give the verse, and I feel this is even more important when you're doing a cross-verse discussion, as fairness and charitability of interpretation will allow people who maybe don't feel as strongly as others for certain feats and statements still reach a conclusion they can agree with for the overarching premise of the battles. I did this already in my Ichigo vs. the Akatsuki video, but I'll sum it up very quickly for those of you who don't binge all of my videos or haven't actually seen me before. In its middle to higher tiers, Naruto has a few metas of speed you can generally duke it out with. This also applies to Bleach as well, but we'll go over that later. In Naruto, these are A, the lightning timing meta, B, the relativistic meta, C, the fast and light meta, and something new, which you may be familiar with vaguely, is D, the power stacking meta. The lightning timing meta is pretty easy to digest. Characters in Naruto can both shoot electricity / lightning, charge light energy through the air
as fast as lightning.
And as a younger Anbu, Kakashi was known and even shown in the anime to actually race to a lightning bolt up a cliff and chop it in half before it could reach the ground. And Kakashi, while not anybody to be underestimated, is certainly no god tier in terms of speed as just a youngling in the verse, and many people can react to him using Lightning Blade and his lightning attacks at point-blank range, when he is more than likely stronger and faster as an adult, such as Pain,
even to be able to see it, to react, and then act upon it.
Even with everyone thinking Kakashi did tag a lightning bolt, characters like the Raikage still boasted he was the absolute fastest in the world after Minato, the fourth Hokage, was gone, showing lightning speed and lore was nothing he couldn't handle or was afraid of. The relativistic meta is when characters who scale above lightning level attacks or are stated above lightning, such as the Raikage or Kakashi, can be blitzed by characters like Minato or Naruto KCM many times over and be made to look slow in comparison. This is usually done via calking, such as when Minato reacts to the Raikage, it would require many times the speed of him, or some calking Naruto to needing dozens of times the speed of the Raikage to blitz him at point-blank range. Calking Naruto dodging the Raikage is quite a contentious topic these days, and while I understand where everyone is coming from, you can simply say Naruto blitzed the Raikage and is clearly much faster than him. This actually goes into the fast and light meta as well, as the Raikage in the databooks is stated in his version 1 Lightning Cloak to move at a speed like light when using his lariat. which is consistent with the Kakashi argument from earlier where he wasn't actually scared of lightning level speed. This is also consistent since Darui fires light rays reflecting off of water particles in the air, and Haku can zip around ice mirrors at the speed of light in the data books if he wants to, which is how he blitzed Kakashi in part 1
was got in the way of Zabuza, yeah.
And could still fight Might Guy and Rock Lee later on in the war as an Edo many years later.
Yeah, when they're much stronger, yeah.
The power stacking meta has to go in details with chakra reserves, and this is pretty common in Shonen, but for example, Naruto gives everyone in the Alliance several times the chakra war arc Kakashi has, in his own words, 3 times or so. And since Bijou chakra in large quantities directly impacts speed, as shown with KCM or the red-tailed beast cloaks, and Bijou Naruto is a master of using his chakra pool by the end of the war, can possibly use thousands of times Kakashi's levels of chakra to move thousands of times faster than Kakashi, as chakra is how much these characters amp their physical ability, durability, and speed to begin with. This is more apparent in the novels, such as the Kakashi Light novel, where stated Shinobi used chakra to go into battle mode,
But I do find Naruto Explained is a really good channel for learning stuff about the novels.
Consider things like this when looking at a shonen battle series.
In Seth and I's last collab, we explained how consistent light speed is throughout the series of Bleach, provided unequivocal evidence showing such, and how easy it is to prove characters are that fast even back in the Espada arc. As many vexatious individuals continue to not only spout nonsense about the series, but also downplay Bleach's speeds to abysmal levels. To put this as simply as possible, we have numerous moments in the series and official data books written by the author Taite Kubo showing us light speed is the most consistent measurement of speed.
I would have said like nearly every character within Bleach can move that fast,
and although we
surely.
won't be commenting on things from the novels or too many things at all from the war arc, as most of the war-related information would spoil Naruto versus Ichigo, and the novels themselves are yet to actually be officially translated, which means we don't want to share any misinformation with our awesome viewers. What we will show, however, should be more than enough evidence to prove what I'm about to say.
Cool.
Chad, a rather weak character compared to the Espada, is able to watch a light-based attack come towards him, which he then reacts to and tanks. Lieutenant level Shinigami are able to avoid the Nagashon at point blank range, a
that's
light used to rescue hollows
They
in
are
danger,
literally dodging
meaning
light.
it needs to be that fast by default, and is even used to get Espada out of the world of the living, meaning it scales to Vasto Lord A tier hollows. This is not only referred to as light by the head captain, but also hyped up by him as he tells other Shinigami to not even bother with it, implying he respects its ability. It's basically the same way that he hypes up the durability of the Chains of Fate in the Bleach Hellverse movie. Nanal, a character who doesn't even have a Zanpakuto toe and almost shat her undergarments from merely standing in front of Yamamoto, can actually tag X-axis,
which is
attacking
ridiculous.
with light-based attacks, and this guy is the literal embodiment of light itself, as he is intangible and attacks with nothing but light itself. We also have 2 versions of Ichigo that would essentially get soul-crushed by the higher Espada, scaling to characters who scale directly to those lieutenants I mentioned earlier, as he blitzes them without them being able to react, one being the right-hand man of the head captain, and the other being the lieutenant of the stealth force, a division which even Aizen praises for their speed and ability. He also then scales to characters like Byakuya and Yoruichi at this point in the story with his Bonkai that amps his speed by 5 to 10 times that of the Ichigo that blitzes the lieutenants, which only a few chapters later, Base Grimjaw calls this average speed, and he mocks his Bonkai's transformation. Ichigo is even able to block a Zero at point-blank range, cut through the Zero itself, which then sends the Menos Grande back to Hueco Mundo, a hollow which scales directly to Lieutenant-class Shinigami, and it uses a Zero, which is referred to as light in the data books, all the way back in chapter 49. Hell, even Ardenyeto dodges light at point-blank range, and this is something that's actually a part of his narrative, written by the author himself, which revolves around his weakness to light itself. If you actually look at this panel here, the manga handles this different than the anime. The anime actually changes how the scene works, but in the manga version, right, the wall gets blown open by Rukia, Ardenyeto turns his head to look at the hole in the wall. This part of the manga panel, where it shows Ardenyeto's face, is still darkened, and he is able to Sonido out of the way
before
of the light
any kind of light.
Wow. Once again, not only is it a part of his narrative, but how much more blatant do we need to be with this?
That's
so yeah,
some
hopefully
speed.
that's enough evidence to prove how fast these characters are on average, as later on in the series, there is way more than just these examples shown, and the Espada can all perform these feats in their base with absolute ease, let alone their resurrections that would multiply their speed by tens of times that of the characters I mentioned, especially if you consider the top 4.
Now, power scaling actual destructive capacity in Naruto can be more complicated than speed, although a lot of the time, feat scaling requires more calcs than speed as well, and while I recommend watching my video on Can Naruto Destroy a Planet for a much more detailed analysis, I can go over some things here, and for the most part, everyone is aware that even the lesser Bijou can vaporize mountains, and characters like Anoki can vaporize island-sized turtles. However, when it comes to Ninetales tier fighters like Naruto, the scale is drastically different. After all, we're talking about the Bijou who, even in its most imperfect form, with only half its chakra, can bully 6 other Bijou at the same time while not even seriously trying to hurt them, and can amp tens of thousands of shinobi to be several times base Kage level, while still having massive amounts of power in reserve, and even fight the Ten Tails off. Even with Naruto only taking a small portion of its energy, he became stronger and faster than any Kage alive at the time. In the data books, it is often cited that the Ninetales with only half its chakra has enough power to turn the world to ash, or that it has earth-shattering power with its Bijou bombs, and this may be consistent when you consider many variables, such as Madara being able to swing meteors out of geostationary orbit from the asteroid belt at massively hypersonic to light speeds, to the Ten Tails being considered to be the end of the world, or having a chakra comparable to the size of a small planet, and being calced to output 10 to the 25 joules with its cataclysms. It's also somewhat lore consistent as well when you realize that the Ninetales is a very significant portion of the Ten Tails, and the Ten Tails is at least a few percentages of Kaguya's power. Kaguya being a being who can wipe out entire time spaces with stars, planets, and moons residing within them. Even if you just said Kaguya was massively large planet level using all her chakra, saying she could destroy her planet and its orbiting moon, the Ninetales being at all a percentage or anything of the equation is something very serious to consider. That being said though, I'll go into more detail during the conclusions, and you can hear a way more detailed analysis in my video, Can Naruto Destroy a Planet Once Again?
Calculating the destructive capability of the Espada is honestly super straightforward. Simply put, it's stated any Espada, regardless of their rank, can destroy Los Noches with a Gran Rey Zero, and Espada ranked 4 and higher, which would include Yami, they can perform an insane feat merely by transforming and without the intent to actually do this. With this mere transformation actually being able to destroy Los Noches, it is also even a law by Aizen that when they release, they must go above the canopy of Los Noches, because, as I just said, even if they're not intending to destroy Los Noches, just merely transforming while they're suppressing themselves could wipe out that entire area. This area is so large that Neliel states walking to just one gate could take 3 days to do so, which is consistent with statements made about the size of Soul Society, areas that exist in the afterlife and are made to house billions to possibly trillions of souls, as they need to sustain the massive influx of hollows and souls that will join them in the future and bump up the populace. By default, these places need to be future-proof. As the Espada transform, they can amp their attack potency by tens of times, as their release forms are based on Shinigami powers, and Urahara believes they scale directly to Bankai releases, which we know the multiplier for, and if you take Ukiura as an example, who has 2 release forms, he can improve his power by 100 times his base form, and his second release would be 10 times the first release, and possibly higher, as Urahara says only their first release is comparable to Bankai, not their second. Now, of course, Urahara probably doesn't know about Ukiura's second release because he never fought against it. That's completely fair, but what we can assume from that is that the second release's multiplier would naturally be much higher because it's just in a league of its own. That's all I'm saying, guys. So it is consistent to say that the second release would be 100 times base. And the top 4 Espada plus Yami are so much stronger than the ones below, it's consistent to say they could destroy Los Noches hundreds to thousands of times over. Even base Grimmjow almost did this by accident when he was in his base form and he fired a controlled Gran Rey Zero, which Ichigo actually tanked the majority of when he stopped the attack, yet it still distorted space around them, and even Hullybell was impressed by the fight itself. Her Fruction actually say word for word that he shouldn't have used the attack, and that's just Grimmjow in his base form. The funny part is too, at this stage Grimmjow is only ranked number 6, so to say that the Gran Rey Zero statement doesn't apply to weaker Espada, let alone the ones ranked above him, it just isn't true. With this being said, their average attack potency is consistently around country to continental, and with scaling of Ukiura, he can be placed much higher than this with his Seto of Escudas, which is stated to
there's no way Naruto could beat the Espada.
Order of magnitude, basically 10 times that of his normal power, right? And then his Lanzador Relampago, an attack which he whips out after the Seto Escudas fails against the Vasto Lorde Ceros, clearly implies that the lance is much stronger than the previous 5 Ceros, and he scales directly to the Vasto Lorde, which is able to perform planetary level feats, and scales to some of the strongest characters in that arc. To end off this part of the video, even Shikai Ichigo was told to not flex his spiritual pressure in the world of the living by Shinji, as it could affect the entire world, and even fodder tier Shinigami like Rongiku have to wear seals to stop themselves from affecting the world of the living.
Now what?
Alright, gang, so, there's the stats, that's probably stuff you guys are mainly familiar with already. I thought I would add a few new things here or there that I was thinking of over the past few months, that I haven't been making videos, but without further ado, I guess we'll just kind of compare now a little bit more about their haxes and their resistances. Obviously, a premise to this discussion that's really important with Bleach versus any verse. Can the combatants see each other?
This is something that people always go about,
isn't it? He'd be able to see them anyway, or at least fight them, because he doesn't need to see enemies to fight them. With 6 paths, he can actually fight beings on a different parallel dimension overlapping the real one, let alone just being invisible but still physically, interactable or whatever. In this case, Naruto with KCM can sense intent and emotions without eyesight. So if we're in a verse where they can interact with each other, Naruto would be able to sense the Espada, as well as the fact that in Naruto, they seem to be able to interact with souls in astral bodies anyway.
Well, if you look at what Obito did at the end, there's a good example as well.
Soul-stealing abilities that can play tug-of-war with their own souls somehow. And chakra in nature has spiritual energy mixed in with it anyway, and we do know that spirits, when they go to the afterlife, they're basically chakra that just kind of floats away, such as when Minato lost his arms due to truth-seeking orbs from Madara, and then his ghost, when it was desummoned, still didn't have arms when it went to the afterlife, right? That kind of shows they still have, spiritual astral attacks, and they are kind of spiritual astral, chakra beings in general. So that's not a point of discussion for this video at all.
Fair enough, that's
cool. When we would do versus matchups like this, why would you even want to have the argument where one verse can't see the other? It's kind of lame.
Yeah, that's ridiculous,
but also,
isn't it?
As we've been shown directly from Kubo's drawings and his narrative, people like Tatsuki and Ichigo's friends who are just very small, sensitive to spiritual pressure, right? They can see Aizen and characters like that, so if Naruto can see things that are way beyond what they can do, just that in itself is enough, man. We don't even need to give him the benefit of the doubt. It's just blatantly he can do that anyway. So if anyone wants to say Naruto can't see the Espada, he can. It's just silly to bring that up.
Fair enough.
Speaking of charity, I think one thing to grant is, does spirit pressure just instantly neg anybody that doesn't have spirit pressure? And the answer is no. That's never been the case. Normal hollows have spirit pressure, but they don't just instantly soul
people
crush
don't just
every normal human
kneel down on the ground in front of it.
And another example, Aizen thought that Mugetsu Ichigo got rid of all of his spirit pressure and was just physically brawling with him. Aizen, who is the self-proclaimed second smartest dude in the Soul Society, thought that physical raw might and no spirit pressure was able to fight him, even though he can soul crush people by standing near them if they're too weak. So being strong enough physically is enough to negate being crushed. Plus, it's a little bit of a no-limits fallacy anyway to say that, if you don't have spirit pressure, you just get crushed instantaneously. So that is another point that, obviously, we're going to grant to Naruto, that you can't just soul crush him by standing next to him.
Just stand next to him and then the fight's over. Fair enough, yeah.
Without further ado, I guess we can just go over all of the individual Espada and what their haxes are like, and how it would kind of stack up to Naruto.
So, when we get into the first 5 Espada, they're not really an issue for Naruto at all. Arden is too slow and too weak to even be a threat to Naruto. He's just gonna one-shot this dude. Xylel Alokoro needs to physically consume him to be able to mess with his organs. He needs to capture him in that alien, tentacle thing to be able to even do anything, which is just not gonna happen.
Another thing about trying to consume Naruto is that if the Ninetales doesn't like you, just touching it is a poison greater than Sasori's poison. It actually poisoned Sakura, who can actually heal herself and has mastery over poisons, to the point where she was, incapacitated just from contact with its chakra. So, If the Ninetales is stronger than you, not only can it just like mind wipe you,
but
like
it can
kind of
poison you
control
as well, Jesus.
like when it engulfs Naruto and chakra, but it also poisons you upon contact if it doesn't like you. So it's kind of a little bit weird to say, yeah, he'll just eat him or something, like, and then he'll be able to cripple him.
Some people might bring up, well, why was he so useful against Mayuri and Uryu and Renji? And it's like, well, Renji and Uryu are ridiculously weaker compared to him, and Mayuri is somewhat relative to him at that stage in the story. Naruto isn't relative to Xylel. He is leagues beyond Xylel. He's going to blitz and kill him before he even thinks of the idea of consuming Naruto. So just to bring that up, sure, the ability's hacks, but it just gets nagged by
it's not going to be used.
That's just the sad truth. As for Zolmari, the biggest benefit with Zolmari is honestly going to be like if he fights with the the meme teamwork. Right, guys?
Yeah.
Akatsuki teamwork argument.
If everyone fights at the same time,
it might be an issue, but we need to give them the most benefit of the doubt in this whole situation here. There is a chance he might hit Naruto with it. It is deadly. I'm not going to take that away. But not only is he slower and weaker than Naruto, but Naruto could probably avoid every single one of those heals because Byakuya is able to like turn around and bring up a Kido barrier and block one of them, so it's not something that just instantly appears on your skin. There's actually there is a physical distance it needs to travel and speed to actually hit the object it's being aimed at, so yeah, it's not hitting Naruto.
One of the things we'll be talking about is Naruto versus Bleach in terms of speed. This is really, really contentious, so I gave you guys 4 examples of how speed in Naruto can work. If you want to downplay the Naruto verse to lightning timers, then Naruto's just like scales massively above a lightning timer. You could say the same thing about Bleach as well. Like there is like lightning timing statements and stuff like that.
Fast.
For the most part, like the medium like tiers are more consistent. And in this case, like even if you were to say Zamari was the fastest of the Espada, there's no way at all to like wank Bleach to be faster than wanked Naruto. Like the power stacking of Naruto saying he's like thousands of times Kakashi in terms of speed is way too ridiculous. Him blitzing characters stated faster than light is way too consistent as well. And how highly he scales above them, giving the whole Shinobi Alliance a chance and making them all possibly as fast as the Raikage. It's just way too absurd for Zamari to even scale to it. Even if you were to say, like, Zamari is, like, much faster than light by, like, 100 times or something ridiculous, it's not very consistent to say that he would attack Naruto. And even if you did say Zamari for some reason just tags Naruto with, like, his weird hacks ability, you would then have to prove, okay, Zamari's Reiatsu and his ability can overpower Naruto's body and force it to do what he wants. If you look at Naruto kind of like a machine, and he has, like, Kurama within his body that can also control his body, it's kind of like, okay, now you have the Ninetales brawling Zamari for control over Naruto's body, and it's like...
Yeah, there's going to be some friction there, yeah.
Well, I don't know, maybe the multi-continental to planetary
the Ninetales has got that little scuffle,
like
wasn't it?
One of the weakest Espada, and even, like, with massive calc stacking, the Espada barely get to multi-continental or whatever, so it's a little bit funky to say Zamari does anything at all, even if he were to tag Naruto. And Naruto can sense attack intent as well, so he'd probably just avoid all the attacks.
Even if you want to bring up some weird scaling with Zamari, where Zamari scales to Byakuya, he scales to second release Shami, therefore blah 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 blah, it doesn't even matter. Naruto is so much stronger than those characters that it doesn't make a difference to the scaling we're talking about in this actual battle, right? And on top of that, as I said before, there is a physical speed of that eye ability. Like it actually takes
like if he can
time
stop
to get to
it
an object
with
to hit,
something,
which,
then it's
once
traveling.
again, Naruto, he's just going to be too fast for that actual attack. It's not even going to be an issue, and we need to make the most like wanked argument possible to give them the benefit of the doubt that they can come up with this strategic plan when they don't even work together properly anyway. That's one of the narratives of the Espada, is they only follow Aizen because he's so much stronger, so that's just not happening. Like, once again, Akatsuki teamwork argument, there you go.
So I guess we can just get, like, all the powerhouses out of the way, like Grimmjow, Noyotra, Halibel, and Stark, and Ukiura, I guess. Ukiura might be a little bit different lore-wise, but same with Yami. But if you were just to get them out of the way, if you were to say like there were multi-continental or something, like for whatever reason, like you were able to scale them that high, you all said they are as strong as like calc stacked Ukiura for whatever reason, right? With like his 100 times multiplier on top of Ichigo or all the other Espada who can wipe out Las Noches or whatever. Then it's still like, well, Naruto is able to give everyone in the Alliance a cloak that can tank the Ten Tails Cataclysm, which is also multi-continental. So it's like, well, even scaling-wise, it doesn't really make sense. And the only person in the verse, if you go over the planetary lore that I was talking about, that has planet-level lore themselves is Ukiura and Yami. Because Ukiura fights the Vasto Lord Ichigo, and that Ichigo has kind of like a life-wiping, world-ending lore in the Hellverse movie. Maybe you could go into more detail with that.
Okay, so Seth is right to just disregard the other Espada, because all of the other ones that are just power-based, like, they're so irrelevant to this fight. Really, like, they are just so irrelevant to this fight and so much slower than Naruto that we don't even need to talk about Harley Balanoid or Grimmjow. And arguably Stark, same deal, really. But Ukiura, yes, he does scale to Vasto Lord Ichigo, who has feats that even the head captain actually respects in the movie and states that he is able to perform a feat that he actually considered impossible. Even with just the multipliers of them being able to destroy Los Noches, you can wank the Vasto Lord at full power if it had the full Shihakusho. You can wank it to, like, easily planetary and so on, and even with that being said, you need to give Ukiura, like, every benefit of the doubt by giving him, you know, the Lanzador Lampago multiplier, because Seto Oscuras improves his power by an order of magnitude, the Lanzador is stronger. Yes, he's to the Vasto Lorde, but, like, Naruto has way better feats than this man, even if you give Ukiura all these cool wank statements to scale to the Vasto Lorde, which, yes, it's impressive among the Bleachverse at this period in the story. It's nothing compared to what Seth has said about Naruto previously in the video.
For the most part, the wanked Espada is kind of trying its best to compete with, like, casual attacks from the Ten Tails and, like, suppressed Edo Madara, like just throwing meteors out of the sky or something. Like, that seems to be their most consistent. And the Nine Tails does scale to a portion of Kaguya's power, and Kaguya still is wiping out entire dimensions. Like, and it's pretty absurd. Now, I know there's the whole, like, I don't know how you feel about this, but, like, warping space is fourth dimensional or something. Like, okay, that's like saying, like, gravity is fourth dimensional, because it can warp space if there's a lot of it or something. Like, it's just
a lot of gravity.
Ridiculous.
It's overwhelming.
Like, you bringing up the dimension thing is interesting, because people are going to say in the comments straight away, well, the Espada have dimension-breaking feats like Ukiura, but nowhere is it implied that this dimension is like a universe-sized thing or an actual dimension, or however you want to interpret that statement. For what we know, that dimension that Grimmjow put Ukiura in could be the size of a room.
That's true, we don't see the actual, like,
doesn't mean anything
size of where they go.
It's just absurd to say bending space is 4D anyway. By the way, fourth dimensional, for those of you guys that don't know, it's basically saying, like, a fourth physical space. Like, you know how we view fiction as 2D, you know, like a fourth dimensional space would view us that same way. So people try to say, oh, you know, if you warp space-time to engulfs our 3D matter, like fiction or whatever, you know, bending it, you must be able to interact with it, right? Even if you were to say, like, that absurdity, you could still say that Might Guy had a linear multiplier and 8 gates. It's only implied he got hundreds of times stronger than the Kage, who Naruto is stronger than. So it's like, Naruto, if you were to say he scales to Might Guy, who warps space by moving, Naruto and KCM would also be fourth dimensional. So I don't want to get here and get into big brain math arguments, but just using some common sense, that argument does not put
you
the
have just
Espada
debunked that
Naruto,
argument
he still scales to people who also warp space. So
this is where we get to the actual answer, okay? All the big powerhouses among the Espada with the most attack potency, they just don't stack up to Naruto. He beats them in their specialties. Their specialties are being fast and being able to destroy things. He's so much faster and stronger than them that it's irrelevant. Also, if we bring up the teamwork argument where they all use their abilities in sync and they work together like the Akatsuki would do much better than the Espada would, that's not even, like, narratively consistent, nor is it honest.
No, they would never work with each other.
We have to really, like, give the Espada all the benefits of the doubt to say they'd have a chance.
In all honesty, the Espada, like, hate each other.
Yeah, they don't like each other at all.
They only work together because Aizen made them. The second Aden Yedo and Zayolapuro were out of Aizen's control, they tried to rip each other's heads off. Noyatora tried to kill Grimmjow while still under Aizen's control as well. So them using teamwork, not very likely.
Not gonna happen.
Maybe you could argue people like Barragan and Ukiura and Yami might use teamwork, but yeah, otherwise it's not really very consistent.
So the reason I said before we're finished with the powerhouse part is because then we get to the big issue that people are going to bring up. This is the one sole problem we've got to just put the nail in the coffin about, and that's Barragan. Now, Seth and I have been talking about this a lot in preparation for this actual video, and Seth has a pretty good argument towards this, which is just going to completely cut this because he is wanked beyond belief, and I think that a lot of people need to hear how he would actually play out in this fight.
The problem with Barragan's ability is that it's Ryatsu based, and it has to interact with other people to actually affect them. Like, his ability can be sealed. Well, it does have time manipulation, but it doesn't seem to be immune to things like Hado and even abilities that should be beneath Barragan and raw power. So his own ability is weaker than himself for a good bit. Unless he gets damaged, then it can affect him under his Hiedo or whatever. But in this case, you would have to prove that Barragan's ability would actually be able to penetrate Naruto's chakra cloak.
Right.
And that's a real argument. Like, you would actually have to prove that Barragan's ability is strong enough to penetrate Naruto's chakra cloak, especially if you're equalizing energy. And this is pretty consistent with Bleach. Now, there is different arguments with how Reiatsu affects abilities in the verse. You know, like some people say, oh, Aizen negging Shikai's ability to insta-kill him with Reiatsu is actually just Kyoka Suigetsu's illusion. It didn't really happen, and blah, blah, blah. But in this case, Barragan actually did respect Aizen enough to think, okay, this guy is so strong that my ability, I can't just like catch him off guard and kill him with it, right? And in this would be a similar case here where if Barragan really did fight someone who's astronomically more powerful than him, it might not actually affect him, especially if Naruto's using his avatar mode or anything of the sort. It's really hard to argue it actually penetrate his chakra.
This is also confirmed by Game, what Seth just said, where Game specifically says this word for word verbatim. He says, the reason they follow Aizen isn't because of the hypnosis, it's because of his raw power.
How powerful he is,
even someone considered the king of Wako Mundo, who has one of the most hacks abilities in the series, if Aizen wanted to, or someone like Stark or Yami or Ukiura, depending on how you argue it, okay, I only added him in because, you know, depends on how you argue it, their Reiatsu would be able to cut the ability. And another thing to mention is this. So, the way that Soifon and Hachi were able to deal with Barragan is by they put him into a keto box and they hit him with an explosion which he couldn't age in time, so he took damage, okay? Now, imagine if Naruto does two things. There's two things he could do here. He could cover Barragan in 1,000 clones that all have their own Kyuubi chakra clones, which would give him durability to withstand the Respira ability, right? And then he just shoots him with tailed beast bombs that make Soifon's Bonkai explosion look like a firecracker. Or Naruto could do what he did in the anime of Boruto, where he covered the explosion of Momoshiki, right? He covered the explosion with his Kyuubi chakra cloak, and he tanked the explosion on the inside of it. Now, sure, it won't work the exact same way, but the same logic does actually apply. Instead of containing an explosion, he would be smothering the Respira ability.
I'm gonna be honest here, right? I think that the Espada, and we've talked about this before, is stronger than, say, the Akatsuki. We've talked about this before, like, the Espada is it's almost like they're a bunch of, like, mini Ten Tails Jinchuriki that can fly around and blast away, like, countries and stuff. But in this case, they're more like KCM Naruto level, like KCM 1, or maybe, like, actually just Jinchuriki level, rather than full-on KCM 2 Sage Mode Naruto level, if that makes sense. Even if you said for whatever reason, they overpowered Naruto, right? They just obliterated him. Zamari just makes him slit his own throat, and Barragan floats over his body when he's on the ground and just turns him to dust or something, okay? Six Paths Naruto is just not getting negged by the Espada whatsoever. His power is so insane that he can fight Kaguya, who can realm bust. He can eliminate entire time-space continuums that have stars in it, moons in it, and possibly, now this is edgy, but in the games there's universes in it.
Wow, okay.
So
going
it's
Logan
like
style.
You're kind of comparing them to more like a Yuha type character, you know, give or take in terms of power, and it's like, it's really stupid to say that they would even remotely compare to Six Paths. It's also important to note that KCM2 Naruto, while he has lore superior to most of the Espada, can also just clone himself thousands of times. He can literally make hundreds of clones for each one of the Espada.
Right, yeah.
And all of them are almost relative to him in power. So teamwork is not a thing. Not at all. Like, if teamwork was a thing, Naruto wins on teamwork with himself.
Damn,
it's not really looking good for any of them in any capacity, unfortunately.
As Seth said, the most comparable thing we can compare the Espada to, and it's only two of the Espada, it's Stark and Ukiura and Yami at full power with, you know, all benefits given to Yami because he takes a long time to get strong. They're basically just the equivalent of, like, the Ten Tails, and it's like, they're too slow, and they're too weak, and also, people are going to bring up this argument, they're going to say, well, Stark can fire infinite Ceros, therefore he's universal, or weird arguments like that. Yeah, Stark's universal, okay, but it's going to take him about 1,000,000 years to actually
do that.
Universe, so don't even bother bringing that up, that's just silly as hell. And as Seth said, even if we do the teamwork stuff, Naruto has 100 individual plus clones for every individual Espada. And this is only KCM2 Naruto, not the ones that make that version of Naruto look like nothing. Like, the power cliffing between KCM2 Naruto and Sage of the Six Paths Naruto is just absolutely insane. What he did to Madara when he first appears, that's all that needs to be said.
You could also say with Barragan's ability that if he's fighting clones, the clones would like pop or whatever, and they'd learn Barragan's ability, and they could like engulf him with like QB chakra and then have him kill himself, similar to how he died in the original. I think we talked about that before. And when we say they're like 10 Tails Jinchuriki or whatever, or like mini ones, we're not saying they're actually as strong as 10 Tails Jinchuriki. I want to get that out of the way. Like, are you saying KCM2 would beat up a 10 Tails Jinchuriki? It's like, no. I'm saying the way they fight is like a 10 Tails Jinchuriki. You know, they fly around, they shoot glass, you know, blah, blah, blah.
That's what we're saying. It's like the same sort of lore that is given to the 10 Tails, where it can turn the world into just a disaster zone and get rid of the planet itself, right? We know how, and it's even beyond that too. I'm just doing the bare minimum stuff here. You can give the same sort of arguments to the wanked Espada like Ukiura and Stark and Yami, okay? But even with that said, they're too slow, and Naruto has better attack potency. That's why we use that as a analogy to compare the two.
Okay.
And obviously, adult Naruto, which I hinted at earlier, you know, just...
Okay, boys, that's pretty much the end of the video. We wanted to make you guys something fun in the meantime, because we do like to collab, but this one in particular was a follow-up to the previous one, and it also gives you guys something in between this video and Naruto versus Ichigo, which is going to come in the future. There will be more updates on that very soon. Just hear us out when we say that it's a lot more difficult than just a normal video. There's things like a lot of money's actually going into the animation, which will be done at the end. We're not going to be doing any sprite animations. It's going to be fully animated with voice actors. When we say animation, we're talking actual anime animation between the two fighting for about 7 straight minutes. This costs a lot of money. The actual just process of everything is much more difficult than just sitting down and recording a video like this. So please be patient. It is coming. If you want to see that video though, please do us a favor. If you've watched this far through the video, give this video a like. Let us know in the comments. Tell us if you want to see Naruto versus Ichigo, because we're very sorry for being super vague and not being vocal with you, but this is the update. Hopefully it, you know, it quenches your thirst for the time being, but it is happening still. Please be patient. That's all I'm going to say.
Class.
Yeah, and anyways, guys, thank you for watching. If you made it this far, just subscribe. You know, we'll make more stuff like this in the future, and if it was enough for you to watch all the way through, you might as well, right? Subscribe to the boy Clyde. You just hit 100K. You know, congrats, by the way. Other than that, guys, till next time.
So, I was wrong. But that's fine, because they did a very good job of explaining all of that at the end. Examples and scaling and whatnot, and I can't really argue with that. That was a very good video. Very, very good video. Covered a lot of arguments and things. But I'm glad I checked that out. That was cool. Yeah, I think I kind of forgot how beastly Naruto actually became at the end of it, and in Boruto it's like, yeah. So anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. What did you guys think of that? What did you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. It's you guys. It's all you guys. Next time.